interesting things for you. I'm going to talk about pressure-treated wood foundations, and so we're going to get into a lot of details about that. I'm going to cover just a little bit of material first of all, and then we're going to have you doing the general show up here. Can we throw the slideshow up just to take a look at this as we get started? We're going to have 4 sessions throughout the day, 20 minutes each session, and you need to sign up with Silvio if you want to participate. And participating, win or lose, you get to keep your gloves and your glasses and your hard hats, so it's worth getting involved. Okay, that's worth the price of a pair of gloves. And then we have prizes for the winners too. Now, we made it a little bit simpler last night at 11 o'clock because we had planned that we were going to have you actually go from this stage up to that stage in different contests. So a couple of you guys are going to be putting the floor on, a couple of them putting the wall on. Well, we decided that that was a little risky, they're heavy, and it was a lot of trouble. So we pre-assembled it. So we have a little bit less to do than we thought, so we're going to make you really work hard at what you do as they're coming in. And what we want to really point out, understand we just don't want entertainment. We want you to walk away knowing how to do this better, getting some good information. And so the real key is, how the hell do you make a foundation out of wood that doesn't rot? Okay? That is the real test. And there's a lot of details that go into making that work, but it does work if you want to come along. You want to give me the permanent wood foundations. If we go to the first slide. By the way, can somebody come up here and set my computer to 20 minutes so that that's ready to go when we're ready to go. Now, I want to show you the Bible on all of this. There is, of course, a CSA code that requires, so now I just hit the space bar when we want to go? No, you got to set it to 20. Will it freeze at 20? Yep. So put it at 20 and make it stop. Don't make it go. Just make it stop. Because it doesn't stop. So I'll have, when we start, you'll come up and set that. Okay. We'll get this organized. There's a CSA code referenced by the building code, or standard referenced by the building code on pressure-treated wood foundations. That's almost impossible to read and very boring. Slightly better is this, which is put out by the Canadian Wood Council. It costs $65, but it's an illustrated guide basically to the CSA standard and other information with commentary and drawings, and it explains why. This is a far more useful document than the code. The code is law, but this follows the law, and you can understand this one. And we're going to have a lot of drawings that I stole out of this in there, and I'm giving them credit with because I was lazy, I didn't want to redraw them. But you'll see in all of the drawings there's little arrows. The arrow has no writing because you can't read it anyway. So you'll have to go into the book. I have one book here, so if you want to take a look at it, you can come up and take a look at some of the details. But this is, if you're doing pressure-treated foundations for crawl spaces or for full basements, you need this. Okay, and that'll keep you on the right track as you're going through. It also does the wonderful thing that it points out, when necessary, what's really important. The code doesn't do that. Code says everything is gospel, But this really explains that this is not an optional thing. This really needs to be done, and we'll look at a couple of those details to go on. First of all, I just want to mention, and I've got to look at my notes as we change things around. Well, first of all, if we go to the next slide, there are 3 ways of making foundations, basically. All concrete, we know that very well. It's very common, particularly where concrete is easily available. Whether it's just a short footing, whether it's a full basement, all concrete works. We know it. We know how to do it. We're used to it, and it's pretty sturdy. And it's not idiot-proof, but almost. So, you can't go too wrong. And then you can make it all wood. So the footing itself could be wood. And that can be particularly on a smaller building, but you can even do larger buildings with all wood. There's need for sizing everything correctly. Okay, so according to the soil and according to what you're building on top and according to your local conditions, that's why we're not dealing with any dimensions here. Everything is just sort of to illustrate how to do it. You don't count on ours being right. You find out in your area and what you're building and the soil conditions what you need in terms of sizes. Then you can make it a wooden wall with a concrete footing. The big advantage of that, and if you look in the pamphlet, I don't have it here, but the pamphlet for your show guide, the conference guide, it has the same drawing, but with explanation of pros and cons of each of these three. They're all three legitimate ways to do it. The concrete with wood has the advantage that it uses less concrete than the other one. Okay? All wood is when you can't get concrete. It's too expensive to get concrete in, or you're going to hand mix it or something like that, then you might go all wood. Okay? Just to understand how well pressure-treated wood is accepted in the industry, it's not a maybe thing. In Winnipeg, a contractor who is going to build your house in late fall will not tell you ahead of time what kind of foundation you're going to have. It depends on the temperature when he goes to build. And if it's freezing cold, he doesn't want to mess around with concrete. He'll build it out of wood. And if it's not freezing cold, he'll pour concrete. So it's interesting that it's that easily switched between one another. Of course, the building techniques are different, but they both work very well. Okay, next slide. Super drainage system. That's what, I don't like calling it a wood foundation. I call it a super drainage system. It's so damn good drainage that the wood never gets wet. If the wood never gets wet, it never rots. And so if we look at it from that side, we're more likely to do things right. If we just think, oh, it's really good wood, it's pressure treated and all that, we can leave little errors that can let water in that can still cause us problems despite the fact that it's pressure treated wood. So if we think about it as being super drainage, if you take a look at the next slide, we see a little bit what that means. When you have concrete on a drainage layer, first of all of the pressure-treated wood foundations do require a drainage layer under the house, but not necessarily under the footing. As you see here, we can have concrete on undisturbed soil. Now this is just taking the concrete wood mix, which is what we're working with here. On undisturbed soil, you have to put drainage pipes through the footing so that the water that comes down the outside, goes into the gravel, can get to the drainage layer and the sump pump on the inside. Okay? If you're putting the concrete down on a drainage layer itself, then the water comes down the outside and right under the footing. But there's no erosion because it's not silt. What we're doing is letting it freely through the gravel as it goes underneath. And then all that is moisture protected from the house. Okay, so it's all trapped down below. So if we think about it, really the drainage is our critical thing. We want water to be directed down. We want water to be kept out of the wall. And there's some funny little details we're going to run into as we go along. Next slide. I should have got myself the button. I forgot to pick up the button. Okay, standing the foundation wall. What we've already done here, if you click the button for me, is that we already have in all of your booths there, the foam here is a concrete footing. Okay? It was a little bit easier in a hotel than to pour concrete. So that's our concrete footing down there that's on the bottom. So you don't have to do that. It could be poured over undisturbed soil, on undisturbed soil, or over crushed rock drainage layer. Either way, it works. Anchor bolts are set into it as you're going along. Okay? Now, we do have a little problem with anchor bolts, is that anchor bolts are like sticking up, and they're kind of straight, and they're kind of placed properly. You like that scientific definition, kind of straight and kind of placed properly? You've seen that before, huh? Now, your job is to take a piece of wood, drill some holes in it, and have it fit perfectly over all of those rods. Have you done that? It's kind of a pain to get it to really work. So we're going to be doing that, and then we realized that the whole thing was pre-assembled for the purposes of this demonstration. You weren't being able to see it. So I decided I'd make you an animation. So for the moment, we're going to run off. If you want to run that animation, and we'll see how is it that you can do this. And while that's running, I'm going to pass these blocks out around the audience. Just spread these things out. Placing sill plates down over anchor bolts can be confusing. Let me show you a method to do it without a tape measure, because that's where the problems all come in. Now, the sill plate may go in the center, such as on a footing, or on an edge, such as on a foundation. So what we really want to do is get this set up the way it's going to be. But I can't put the sill plate down directly there. The rods are all in the way. So you cut yourself a small piece of the same material. In this case, I have a 2x6. And then you place the small piece between two rods in the proper position on the wall. So either hugging the outside, in this case, we're hugging the center setting on the center line. Take a pencil and mark the inside edge. Now, then what you're going to do, as I remove the pencil, you'll see there's a mark there. Go down to the other end, or you can do it all the way along and do the same thing again. Center the block, mark the edge, and you get 2 marks. You can run a chalk line all the way, or you can do several of these marks as you go. You don't need a lot of them, because now we're going to take the real sill plate that has no holes in it yet, and we're going to place it on that line hanging off the edge. Now you may need 2 people to hold on to it. Don't need any more fancy holding than that. Hold it snugly in place on that line, standing proud of all of those rods. Now we're going to take a transfer gauge, and I'll show you how to make the transfer gauge in just a minute. The transfer gauge is a piece of wood that's exactly the same as the spacer we just did. So it's a little section of 2x6 in this case. If you have 2x8 sleepers, then sill plate, then you're going to need a 2x8. But in this case, or 2x4. So this is a 2x6 piece, and you see it has half a notch in it that when I place it on top, it will hug in to one of the anchor rods. Then I can take a pencil and mark the other side. I mark it first for the center, and then I mark it for the distance away from the rod. So I'm holding this block parallel to the sill plate. And once we've got the mark, let's lift that off. You can see there's a nice little mark. And we very quickly walk down the way, and you get marks all the way to the end. Drill holes in those marks, and you'll find the board fits perfectly on. Drill a hole just slightly larger than the rod. But still, there'll be a few variations from angles, but you'll be able to force that down quite easily into place. Okay, how do you make that transfer piece? As I said, it's simply a piece of 2x6. I actually take 2 pieces of 2x6 and I clamp them together. Then, as you can see here in the photo, we actually drill down in the line between the 2. Then, when you pull it apart, we now have the transfer gauge. What you should do is at this point draw the center line back from that rod, because when you drill it's never quite in the right place. Well, if we have half a slot, that's perfect. We just want this line now to be perfectly in the middle of that half slot. Down the other side, and I take a chisel and I cut out a little V groove so that the pencil has some place to go in and make a nice clean centered mark. And snug this block up around the anchor bolt. It only goes halfway in, so now we're at the center point of the anchor bolt. We mark that down. That's the center point of the hole you need that will exactly match all the way along. Easy as that, no tape measure. No tape measure is important. That's where we make all the mistakes. Okay. So by doing that, it's a simple gauge. There's a professional one, a anchor bolt transfer gauge that is a handheld gadget that does the same thing, gives you a little nail hole where you need to drill. But this is so easy to build and to make, and then just move along. You hang on to it. It's anytime you're doing that size sill plate, or smaller or bigger, you've got one, you just pull it out and it works every place you go. So that saves all kinds of trouble. That was worth the conference itself. We can go home now. Okay, I forgot to ask you, how many of you have been to this challenge before? How many of you come into this challenge? Not all that many of you. And how many of you this is the first time you've come to one of these challenges? Oh, okay, that's good for me to know as we're moving along. You're going to have fun. Okay, so we're going on to the next slide here. And standing foundation wall. Here's the steps that we want to do. Oh, it's going to run all the steps. You can stop there. We want to mark the bolt holes in the sill plate and drill the holes. That's the animation we just did. Okay? So now we've got the sill plate marked and ready to go down. Then what we have to do is come along and lay in a piece of plastic. I don't have any more plastic up here, do I? But you can see it here. If you just look over at your stations, you can see we've covered the whole footing in a piece of plastic down over the bolts before we put the wall on. So it goes through the wall. And if you actually look at this carefully, you can see that it comes right underneath. It's extra here, it's extra out here, but not too far on this side. We don't want it to interfere with any water drainage coming down this way, because any water drainage coming down needs to get down under the concrete or through the concrete, but has to be able to drain through. So we don't want a big piece of plastic laying out here. One, you'd walk all over it and tear it apart, but two, it also stops the water. So we're a little careful on this side. This side comes over, because eventually that will be attached to a piece of plastic that covers all the drainage layer, all the gravel. And so those would be sealed together as sort of a last step. Now, if we have a deep enough basement or crawl space, we do that very end. Everything's covered. Nobody's walking. Nobody needs to get down there anymore. You're not destroying it. So that would be a sort of a last step before you put a floor in, if there's going to be a floor. Now, if this is a real short wall for some reason, it's going to be trouble to get in there, then you might have to do this while it's open and finish that off, and then be careful, lay boards down to walk around and work on it, because you don't want to lie on your back in a little 2-foot crawl space and work too hard back there. Okay? So there's several things that we do depending on how much room we have to work. Okay, we got this poly strip over the footing. Then we can set, now in our thing we would set the pre-built wall down, but we already did it for you. But now what you're going to do in the first challenge, so those of you doing the first challenge, and that's going to be the whole list, is that it's pretty simple, but you're going to bolt those down. There's nuts in each station, a washer and a nut, bring it down. Now we happen to have carriage bolts coming up through our granule drainage layer down here. Okay, don't you love it's a plywood drainage layer, but they wouldn't let us bring in a ton of gravel into the hotel. So that's our drainage layer that you see on the bottom. And our bolts, because they won't stay in the styrofoam or in the polystyrene, are just carriage bolts coming up. But let's lock them in. Don't have to do it too hard, because you could rip it right through the plywood, but just get it firm so it's not going to move. Okay? So that's one of the things we do, is we lock the wall down to the footing very early in the game. The reason for that is this whole thing can move really easily sideways. As a matter of fact, an important detail is you never backfill until there's bracing of some sort on the inside. Either the floor's in place and that's bracing, or even down here things are in place. If this is going to be filled in later on, you might need a whole fill board here and then fill it in before you backfill. You can't put pressure on one side of this wall at a time. You've got to like have it ready, because a concrete wall, it stays put, but this one won't stay put. And so it's got to be locked down. We got to support it. We got to make sure this is all filled in around the concrete so the concrete doesn't slide, and give it a chance to not deform as we go up. So be careful about when you do that backfill. Okay, it becomes more delicate than with a concrete foundation. Okay, next item. Now, here's what you're really going to do. Lock down with washers and nuts. Next, you're going to round over all the corners. Now, what the heck is that? If you want to help me pull this outside corner around. Yeah, dance it right around to the outside corner. I didn't realize I was going to do this right in the beginning. I love my house that swings. Don't you like this? This is a new energy efficient feature on building houses. As the sun moves, your house turns. Okay? You're always facing south all the time. This is a great new gadget. This cut plywood here is actually usually sharp. If I were to wrap any protection around here, be it blueskin or poly, coming around this corner, what happens is it could get sliced by that. So you either take a saw, a rasp, or even just a hammer, but you take the sharpness out of it. You don't have to do much. It's easy, but it's a stupid little thing. If you don't do it, you might end up with like a blueskin just slicing itself. And then you got to patch it, and you're into all kinds of trouble. So all these outside corners that could cause problem. Here I got some splinters sticking out. So we'll actually get that all down. So you can run your hand here. That is a little sharp. That's round. So that's something you're going to do. Okay, you can see the little pieces of paper on the sides. That's your whole list. The big stars are already done for you, and the arrows you're going to be doing. Next step. Now we're going to caulk all joints in the plywood to create an air barrier. Okay, the hotel decided to not let us have 6 caulking guns going on their rug. So that's your caulking gun. Okay, now we have judges that are a little worse than municipal inspectors. They're going to really look carefully at what you're doing, because we don't have a lot of work to do, but we've got to do it well. So in pressure-treated foundations, actually, before I put this, see I got a joint here. You don't all have joints. You all have a joint in the outside corner. Some of you have a joint here, some don't. is that this needs to be really caulked down. And ideally, you would caulk it and then set the piece of wood into the caulking. Okay? So it squishes and fills that hole. What we're doing is not only protecting it from water, and you're going to draw this all the way down nice and neatly. That's well caulked. Not only are we protecting it from water, we're creating an outside air barrier. Okay? And that is an essential part of a pressure-treated wood foundation, is that we're going to seal that all the way down like that. So all these vertical lines, so that one and particularly the corner one, need to be sealed down thoroughly. Okay? Even here I have an overlap a little bit. It would be nicer if that was flush, but if it's not, we at least make sure there's nothing sharp there coming down. I would personally take a rip saw and sort of go at that until it's a flush joint, just to not stress my waterproofing membrane. Okay, it's well backed all the way along. So that's going to be sealed on the outside. Next step is going to be install Blueskin. That's right, I have a pointer myself. I could try doing this myself. Hey, that would be cool. Install Blueskin dash poly. Some of you have Blueskin, some of you have poly, right? No, you didn't set up the poly. It's all Blueskin? Okay. He was going to set up some poly last night. But there's two ways that this thing can be done, and we'll see that in just a minute, is that, let me just see on the drawing here. Yeah, okay. We'll see some details here. That's going to come on here. How far down we're coming to put the Blueskin on? In fact, let's do some Blueskin here. You guys want to come up and do this? Blueskin is a self-adhesive membrane that you take the backer off and you put the Blueskin on. Now, what you do not want to do with Blueskin is to take all the paper off and then stick it together. Okay? That now becomes a doormat. Forget it for the wall. Okay? So you have to be careful how you do this. So, there we go. What is he doing first? He is actually putting this, oh, by the way, Blueskin comes with a wrapper. The wrapper comes with instructions. Have you ever read the instructions on the wrapper? Read them. Okay? There's really some important stuff here. They'll send you the website too. One of the important details, it says it requires a primer. So your primer is something like this. You're not going to be putting this on. It's too messy. But you would put a primer on so it really sticks to the wood. Otherwise, it falls off. Okay? It looks good, but it falls off. Now, look at what they're doing here, is they're getting that ready to go, and he's pulled just a little paper off. So he's pulling that back. Now, we're not getting what we need to get from the camera, so let me turn this around for our camera here. Oh, he's got it over there? Okay. Your camera people are better than I am. There you go. Okay. Now, pull this back this way a little bit so we can see here. You see how we've pulled this back, but not much? It means I don't have all the rest of that giving me trouble. And I can line this up properly on the top and do these vertical sections like this. He's coming over the edge, not to the edge, over the corner that we're going to come around. You all set there? What do you need? Yes, there is. Now you're going to use either a putty knife, a block of wood, a roller, something to get rid of the wrinkles and to make sure it's pushed down as you're going out there. Try that other kind. Jessica, you got that? Yeah. So you see those wrinkles that are being worked out? And then he's slowly pulling the paper off below as you go. Now be careful, because if you pull it all off, the bottom is going to get all dirty and other things. Now here, you don't even want to pull that all off, because we're going to come back and cut this piece. And a little detail here. Let me jump slides here for just a moment. Okay, look at the bottom of the wall on the outside. That's the Blueskin coming down where the arrow is. And you see the black line on the bottom, which is my poly down here. And you'll see a funny detail that you've never imagined. It's open between those two. We do not close that joint. We don't caulk it, and we don't seal the Blueskin to the poly. That is my only drainage for the whole wall, Everything else is trying to protect the wall. If something goes wrong, that's the way out. And it goes out to the drainage layer and under the house. Okay? So that, as you see, this is coming down this one. Your wall may be higher, so you might not have that. So what we need to do is to cut that off just barely above the bottom. I don't want to cut my plastic underneath. Be careful. You can't cut downward towards the concrete because I don't want to cut that plastic. So we're cutting across just a little short there. And then you might have to cut that back even more so it's not sticking to the plastic down there on the bottom. So as we come down, you see we're just a little short, but you may need to trim that. We're getting any shots on the bottom here? So now cut it back against the wood, just a hair. So that's a careful little thing all the way around the house. We just make sure that we leave that space open just a little bit. Okay? You can also put polyethylene, heavy polyethylene on the wall instead of Blueskin. And if you do that, you bend over 2 or 3 inches on the top so you get a nice, smooth, straight line instead of an uneven cut line. And it, too, would go down and just be left floppy on the bottom as you're coming down. So now we can cut. Let's show this to the camera. Come on, move over here. He touched the black to the black. Okay. So if you did much of that, you're dead in the water. Okay. So we're going to put Blueskin on. As much Blueskin as they give you for your station. I don't know if you're going to have enough to do the whole thing, but make sure you get the corner. Now, wrinkles here. I don't like, you see that wrinkle? You can't put this on and take it off very much, so you make sure you don't push it until it's ready to really go up. Now, he forced so hard because he had stuck the black to the black that it's deformed it a little bit there. And we need to come back and push it into place. Now, if we have our primer on the wall, by the way, one of the details of the primer that you can read about in the label is that if you put the primer on and wait too long, you have to put the primer on again. Okay, there's a time limit there, usually a couple of hours, so you got some time, but you don't come back the next day and try to put the Blueskin on, it won't stick. Okay, so the primer has a timeline to it. And then you would overlap, there's a mark here that actually shows about a 2-inch overlap if you're doing, as you move along with the layers of Blueskin. Okay, now let me see if we can get back over here. So we're installing the Blueskin and the poly. After that, we're going to come along, particularly if you have the poly. Now, we have a joint right here that may or may not be, the Blueskin gets above grade, several inches above grade, and then stops. So you may have just plywood that goes straight on up, whatever. We're going to put a little bead of caulking right on that joint, okay, to make sure that's sealed across there. And that will then, there's another board. You have the board. We're not going to put it on yet because we don't have the rest of the wood here. But actually, I thought we might be doing it. Oh, no, yours will be all finished so you can do it. So this board is designed. Now, of course, it varies. Where's your grade? Where's your soil? We want the soil to hit somewhere, somewhat, a couple inches down from the top of the board. Okay, and this is pressure treated wood, plywood, not this one. So it would go over here, but it means I need to put a bead of caulking along the top of my poly, particularly the poly, but even the Blueskin, bead of caulking, let's protect it. And then another bead of caulking, either back on the top edge of this thing or on the wall, so that when we put that in, it squeezes it in, and then you can attach it all, and you attach it basically at the very top or above the Blueskin. So we're not putting holes in the Blueskin down underground. Okay? If there's holes above ground, no problem. But a hole underground, the water can sit there and find its way in. Okay? So your assemblies are all there. So I believe if we go back to the PowerPoint, install and caulk the grading strip. This is called the grading strip, and it goes up here. Now let's just take another look at the grading strip. There's the grading strip where the arrow is. You see the bead of caulking on the top? One little thing about caulking. Look at the little diagram on the left. The round bead of caulking is not put on after the board. It's put on before the board. So it's squeezed in from the back. If you lay that across the top, I guarantee you there'll be a little space that you missed. There'll be something that peels off or doesn't stick, okay? If you do a continuous piece across the top and then squish it in, then you know you've got it. And one way to do that is to actually put your grading strip, if you want to catch me on this camera over here, you bring your grading strip up like this, and you put the nail in just roughly so it's sticking out just a little bit. Then, if it's sticking out just a little bit here, let me just bring this down where it actually shows better. If that's sticking out a little bit, I can run my bead of caulking across here and then squish it by driving the board home. So if you don't want to mark where it goes, you place the grading strip, make sure it's bent out just enough for the caulking, lay the caulking in there, squish it in. Okay? And then you can come back with more caulking on the top if you want to. But we get that sealed off. So we've really protected this whole thing from the top. We've got it sealed behind the blueskin and then the blueskin. We're not letting any water in here. And if there is water on the inside, it can't get out through here. It's going to get out through the bottom. Okay? That's our first contest, is walking through that. Oh, there's one other little detail. Do we have corner boards? We do. Inside or outside quarter boards. Now, these things, when you're on the outside of the house, you can imagine that a corner board could be useful. How are they going to touch this? You got nails or what? Okay. So this goes on, and you lay it on so that it goes up tight against the wall, and they overlap in the corner one way or another, like that. And it's caulked all the way around. You notice in the drawing, if we come back to the drawing, it's caulked all the way around. And there's one nail about 12 inches down here from the grade strip. It's towards the top, and it's just hung by one single nail. And the caulking holds it in place. What does this do? This protects the corner from rocks, from anything else when you're backfilling. Without that, you get a hole right here. Okay? Now, why do we do this on the inside corner? You don't have inside corners, but if you did have an inside corner in your house, if you go back and look at this, you see the inside corner needs the same thing. The reason for that is when you put on poly is the worst offender. Put on the poly, it's not tight in the corner. So when the soil comes, it stretches and breaks the poly. Even the blueskin can be put on not tight in the corner, and if it's not totally supported on the backside, the pressure of the soil will end up breaking the blueskin. Okay? By putting the wood on, it basically just means I can't put the wood on unless I get everything tight to the corner. So it forces you to do a good job before the soil comes. It doesn't really protect much of anything, it just forces you to do a good job. So these boards on outside and inside corners, they're just there for protection, but they're very important because the whole thing can be sabotaged without them. So standing the foundation wall, you're going to mark the bolts, all of that. This is what you're going to be doing. And there we are. You've got the same list on the side of each station, so you can check things off as you go or double check it, because this will disappear from here and they'll have the cameras going out. Those of you that have signed up for this first contest, choose a station, 2 by 2. Go to your stations, don't do anything yet, and we'll get ready to go. Okay, everybody in our first contest, up. Well, they're getting set. Do you have any questions about that? We want to make it watertight. That's our objective at this point. Get in with your partner. See, now, you need to put your helmets on. That's for home and garden television. You see, it's got to look good because you're going to be on air for the conference video. We wouldn't want to show poor working thing. The gloves actually are for putting the insulation on later on, so you don't really need the gloves right now, but you get to keep them anyway. looks good. Oh, to not put them on?
No, put them on.
Put them on, yeah.
Okay, so like you're ready to put your Blueskin on, right? And
Yeah.
You have to leave that little piece.
Yep.
So you just pre-measure and cut it.
You could if you're good at that.
Because you're going to be in a tight space. Where you
Yeah.
have to reach down and try to make sure
That-
with your eye. that
You're
not
absolutely right.
going like this.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. But I mean, it could be a little sloppy on the bottom without a problem. What we don't want to do is cut the plastic.
You know those noodles, like noodles, extrusion. What do you call it? You can use it for weather stripping.
Mm.
Just something to keep it from sticking on the plastic on you.
Yeah. You know, another thing you could do is just take a little piece of plywood, put it on there, and run your knife across the top of the plywood.
I'm not a builder.
Yeah, but I mean, that could be just a little sliver of plywood, and you lay it down, and
Yeah.
and you cut it, and then you know you're not going to hit the plastic,
Or you could create it like a
even with the spatula. Yeah. Yeah. Okay, so they're going to finish that. Okay, do we have people in all the stations? You're all set? Get your hard hat on. It looks better. Besides that way, if you bang your head. Oh, now what I didn't mention, can I have your attention for a minute? You'll notice there's some important differences in the stations. Most of the stations have what we call standard studs. Is everybody listening? Just a little detail here. Most of the stations have standard building construction of studs on 16-inch centers. Okay? And you'll notice they have a double header on the top going along there. And that is standard construction. The double header is because the joists may or may not fall in between the studs on the bottom. What we call advanced framing, like I have in mine, and you'll see it in that one back there and this one here, is that they're on 24-inch centers, and there's a single header. And the reason that works is that the floor joists line up with the foundation joists. So everything's in a straight line. The other one is carrying the weight from the middle over to the joist. That's why it has a double header. Okay? So it's a way to use less lumber. Okay? Saves you some money using what we call advanced framing. It's just lining all the studs up so that everything right up to the roof is in line. And even the roof joists are in line with that. Okay. Everybody in place? Now, remember what you're doing. You have the list there to run through, but you're locking down the washers and nuts, you're rounding over the corners, you're caulking the joints, you're installing your Blueskin, caulking on the top with that black marker. Oh, before you put the Blueskin in, don't forget to put the red marker, the primer, all over the wall there where the Blueskin's going to go. That's what the red marker is the primer. And then you install and caulk the grading strip over the top. You're all ready for that, and if you have any questions, catch one of us or come up and look at mine to help you out. I'm going to have 20 minutes to do this. Can everybody give me a hands up that you're ready? You're ready? You're ready? You're ready back there? Get a hat on. You're ready over here? You're ready? Okay, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. The timer's gone. Thank you, Jessica. Yes. You want to do a poly one. The best thing for a poly one is to bend it over. Then it gives you a straight line.
We're just trying to match it up like the
Yeah.
Blueskin, so
Yeah.
we don't have much of it.
Yeah. So now the judges need to check that banging before they get the blueskin on, so you find out if they really rounded the edge. Lots and lots of black stuff. It's the joint you really want to seal. Bolts are in place. That was an easy part. So we're nice and round here. That's good. That's good. It's well sealed. Yeah, you got to jump in and see if they're doing it before they hide it. Now, the red is really a primer. It goes over the whole wall here. Now, before you put that up, make sure you get the primer on. The red felt pin is a primer. So just throw some scratch all over the place. Say you primed it. So you need a primer. Take the red one and put a primer kind of all over the wall. Just scratch it, just to say that you've done it. Standing room only. This is good. Pardon?
There's something we didn't show.
What didn't we show?
Using the 1x4 on the bottom, marking it before you pull the paper off. Putting a piece of 1x4 on the bottom, like marking the bottom before you cut it, right? So you're not cutting through the poly. But
Right.
1x4, use a straight edge, cut it with straight edge. They filmed us doing it, but
Okay. So you put a 1x4 there,
the 1x4s are all at the stations, and they can be used as straight edges.
or anything else for cutting. Okay, because you could just lay that on the concrete and cut across the top, or mark it, or what?
Blueskin down and top, mark the pencil on either side, lifted it back, put a piece underneath, and then use the longer strip as a cut edge. And I'm not cutting through the poly.
Yeah, okay. Now, for not cutting through that poly, a lot of ways you can do it. You can use the 1x4s that are on your station as straight edges to draw lines. You could take a piece of the plywood that's sitting around. There are little strips of plywood. You could put them on the ground and cut across the top of the plywood. Just something not to cut the poly on the bottom. Now, if you're standing around in the back not knowing what to do, don't forget we got some trade show booths back there. You might want to drop in, take a look at the tools and the products that they have. Visit our exhibitors. And there are exhibitors throughout the day. The big hall you know, but there's another whole hall of exhibitors back in the other side down the hallway. So there's more exhibitors hiding away back there. This guy's done blueskin before, okay. That's it. Yeah, just peel it down a bit. So you got some sticky showing, but not too much.
So we did 2 pieces of blueskin, and we want them to do that too. They overlap.
Okay, 2 pieces of blueskin
9-inch overlap.
that with a 9-inch overlap. Okay. So you do your corner from both sides. And it actually gives a double thickness on the corner to help protect it. So that's why you have 2 pieces of blueskin there. They both go around the corner. And of course then you go on the wall, down the wall, down the wall. That's looking good. Now one little trick, yeah. I don't need to tell you, you can do it, you figured this out. What is amazing is to realize how easy it is to cut the blueskin with a fingernail. So you have to be careful. Many guys that use it to crease it into a corner, they run down and they find out their fingernail just slit the whole corner wide open. So you got to be really careful when you work on corners that you push into the corner with glue just on one side till you're in the corner, and then you pull the paper off the other side if you're working on inside corners. Outside corners are a lot easier. Easy goes. Now try to avoid having to lift it and re-go back down. That's why you pull the paper off slowly as you go. Better nestle that corner down before you bring the other piece on.
They actually only gave us, we had 2 pieces, but then they kind of hijacked it.
Do we have any more Blueskin, guys? Is there any more blue? Yep. Don't, no excuses. They got hijacked over here. They got hijacked. Okay. We're not even halfway through the time, so we're moving along. How are we doing here? Second Blueskin's being laid out. Ah, he's caulking the board. That's good. Caulking that board in the back. Little bit of red all over the wall where you're putting primer. Oh, they just wrote primer. Okay, I'll buy that. Blueskin is not really much fun to work with. You have something dragging. Oh, it's not your shoelace. Okay. You have a question? All right.
Another thing to mention too is you
Sure.
can put a galvanized piece of flashing along the base, then put your Blueskin over top of it.
Oh,
Doesn't it?
that would do it. Okay. Do we want to put those corner boards on in this one?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, because I didn't have it in the list. Yeah.
They're kind
Yeah.
of like there's a jig for setting the height because they're all cut the same.
Ah,
Put those on first.
put them on, just sit them down on the concrete?
Yeah, so we can't do that right now, but like
Yeah, because we don't have the top piece. Oh, you could.
mark it.
That will serve as a jig, except, okay, jig for the grade strip. Okay. The corner boards that you have there can be used as a jig for your grade strip. We couldn't do it on ours because we don't have a floor on yet. So go around and explain to them when they get into it that the corner board can be used as jig for the grade strip. Okay, how you doing here? Okay, now, well, a little trick here is you've got the corner boards here.
Yeah.
Use the corner board as a jig for the grade strip.
Oh, yeah, okay. Thank
We
you.
couldn't do it because we don't have the wall yet. So if you do that, there's 2 of them, so there should. Don't we have another one?
Right here. This corner board here?
No. It's the big piece.
Yeah, that's the corner board.
That's it, but we don't have 2? This is the grade strip, huh? It goes along that way? Well, just go down. You have a big grade strip, so put that here. Wait, is that? No, that's not it, is it?
That's definitely a corner board.
Right here?
You're short one corner board?
This one's a corner board.
Okay, but we don't have 2?
We should, but I don't know why.
Okay. Now, so their big grade strip is just this one? You see that'll go out? Yeah.
Package there.
Uh, Okay. Okay. Now generally we want that nail much higher because we want to be above grade with the nail. Okay? Okay. And then you have a big one here that goes across. This is the guy that goes across. That one goes the other way, I think. Okay, so that's where we want to come in here. Actually, if you want to take the other one, you just use it as a jig here. You could place that in. And then when you do nail this in, nail it fairly close to the top, above the gray. There you go. Okay, you got the another corner piece for this end? Or you're all right there? You're all set? Oh, it's around the corner already, okay. They're starting over?
I put it on the one corner as soon as it touched the top. The whole thing was
Yeah, here's the poly. Underneath this? No. No, it's open. It's just sitting there, the weight of the wall down. This will be tied to the poly that goes over the whole floor. This will be left open on this side. Any water comes down here can go around. Any moisture coming up here can't go anywhere. You're done. That's in. That's in. Okay? One station's done. You got 6 minutes left to go. Looks like you're all going to have time to get this done. We weren't able to demonstrate all of it because we don't have the rest of our house built yet. You have the floor in place so you can put on your grade strip. Five minutes left. These guys are finally getting the feel for the Blueskin. Perfect. This thing nailed in already? Okay. Looking good. Can I see this for a minute? I just want to see the schedule. We're supposed to be, okay. You done? Yep, all right. Two done. These guys are almost done. These guys done? No. That's looking good. keep forgetting not to walk in front of the camera.
With the outside of the wall against the wall, so you give it a realistic feel of being in the back row, like a cut hole.
Ah, okay.
So it doesn't feel like that.
I like your galvanized idea on the bottom. Just an L, huh? Then you could just tape to it, cut, and it would bleed underneath. Yeah, but it's one more piece. Okay, you guys done? Okay, we got 2 stations still going. You just about done it? He's caulking down the last bit. Now, a couple things to mention while we're just finishing up here. One of the suggestions that we just got was that you could take a little galvanized L, put it on the bottom of the wall, bring your blue strip right down glued to it, and then you can cut right on the galvanized, and the water could still go underneath. Okay, in terms of going across the bottom there. That would be one little trick to get that to work. Now, if you're in a situation like we were here, where the top was not on yet, and you wanted to do all of that side, you can do a lot of work before putting grade strip on. Come back when it's ready to put the grade strip on there. Just have to worry about weather. Anytime you're open, you don't want to collect a lot of water. So a lot of people will do it that they want the floor in really quick. If they can get the floor in, even if the walls aren't there, it means you can drape it against the rain, and you could actually go work underneath, do other things on the inside while you're waiting for it to dry up outside. But you don't want to put insulation everything on the inside while it's still open to the rain. Unless you're guaranteed there's no rain for a while, eh? Jessica, you want to bring your camera over here for me? One of the things I wanted to mention, you're using nails, and you're using hot dip galvanized nails all the time in this, and what you want to really make sure you do is here's a package of nails for nail gun, and you see this ACQ mark on there? ACQ, MCQ, well that's just English and French, but the ACQ says that this nail is approved for pressure treated wood. That's basically what it is. Any fastener you're going to use, whether it's in a power gun or just hand nails, you want that label ACQ. That's really important. Oh, we're almost out of time. We're all done? And the clock hasn't finished. He's just caulking over there. Caulking like crazy. Getting it on in his last 27 seconds. Rushing around the corner. Got it? Done? Everybody finished before time. Good. Congratulations. So the judges are working at running that through. Any particular problems that you had? What was difficult? Getting that elastomeric on right. Now understand, when you have a primer on there, it sticks even more. That you were able to pull it off and reset it. That primer, that's going to be hard to do. And so you really need to get the hold of it. If you've never done elastomeric before and you're going out to work on a house, take a little bit of it and practice someplace. And see if you can get it on perfectly smooth and around a corner. Because that's the real key, is pulling back that paper and advancing the elastomeric, pushing with a board or a spatula into a corner without cutting the elastomeric, and when it's tight, then pulling the rest of it out on inside corners. Outside corners, it wraps around pretty easily. Okay? Now, if you did cut the poly on the outside, it's not a crisis because we're on the outside, and the water right there is going to tend to go off the concrete into the drainage layer. If you did that on the inside, we'd be in trouble. And inside, it's got to be sealed airtight. Completely airtight, watertight on the inside of the basement. That's really just about the most difficult part of a pressure-treated wood foundation, aside from thinking it through and using the right materials. Now, as you can see, there's a lot less wood used in these stations. Well, like my own here, this one is the station with the 24-inch on centers. And the whole idea behind it is that then the floor joists are going to fall right smack on top of the boards. And if you take a look at the other ones, the floor joists don't line up with the boards, and that's why they have a double header to carry the weight over. More wood. You do the advanced technique, you save a lot of money. Lumber's getting expensive. Save a lot of money on lumber. All right, the judges are still working around on that. Now, don't forget, we have lots of exhibits out here, and you want to get your passport punched as you go to the exhibits. Visit the guys in the back of the room. There's the big hall, but there's also, if you go out down the way a little bit and across from the offices, there's another room of exhibits. This show is becoming so successful, we're going to take the whole hotel next year as this thing is growing and growing, and we'll have exhibits all over the place. But don't forget the guys down the hall. That's worth stopping in, taking a look there. And don't forget our friends from all of the 3 exhibitors right here in the back. We have a judgment.
Yes, we do. We do have a judgment right now. So it was.
Come over close to my microphone
okay,
here. You got to hug me up.
Okay. Oh, you're getting really
I
close.
like this.
How long have we known each other?
Yeah. Don't talk to your wife.
Okay, so it was pretty tough. It was really tough. Everyone did a great job. We actually had a tie there, so we had to just go back and double check a couple things, and we found that team number 2 over here. So we got Terrence and George from Yabmatung. They are the winners.
Good. We got prizes here? We got some prizes for you guys. We got to just dig them up. Come on up here, you guys. Oh, nothing to do with construction at all. This is, you want to give it to them? Fishing poles. There you go. That's for after you do a good job, you get to go fishing. Okay. Congratulations, guys. Da, 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 da. Good. Congratulations. Okay, 10:45, we go to the next step. We'll be working our way through. We got to do insulation on the inside next time around. And so you need 2 more people for the next one. And if you want to sign up for the afternoon, get over here to Silvio and sign up. Okay, thank you very much. Don't forget your passport, get punched, and we'll see you at 10:45.